Hi there, I am Gray. So today I'm gonna talk about assignment 3. For the question 1, we need to develop a Node Express application. And for the step 1, we need to create this application and add this dependency to our project. So I add this dependency, and for the uh, second thing is that we need to follow this structure. So for the assignment 3, I also add this same structure. For the step 2, we need to copy some code and paste it on this JavaScript file, each of them. So as I add this, this is our database file, this is our employees, and this is our app file. And for the step 3, we need to open a post mount and choose post methods and with using with this URL. And we need to add 3 pair of key values for that. So I pass this URL and select the post request, and I also add this key value pairs. When we click on the send button, we will see that our data displayed, and also we will see this same data in our console, VS Code console. And so if we look at our database, that if we click on refresh, also we will see that the data is in our data MongoDB. And if we open this URL in our browser, so we can also see that this data on the web page. So, and also we can see the specific, we can display the specific employee records using this ID. So, for example, if we call this get method and this copy this ID and click on the send, we see the only the one this data. So for the step 4, because also I add the screenshot. We need to explain the ABC. So when we call this postman and choose the post method, so if you look at our code, it's when we send a post request, it's called this method that technically create an employee added to our database. So employee.create, we create our employee records in our database, and this data is coming from our come from our web page user provides, and then if any errors occurs, we display this error message. And then so we call this all employees after the created done, and that displayed on the web page. So for the post post request working like that. And for the B, when we open this URL in our web page, we create a get request. So this is our post request, and also we have get request is here. It's just this find this all employee course in our database and then display it on the web page. We don't create any employee records. For the this URL, again, it's create a get request using with this employee ID, which is called this method. And so we get this ID from the URL, and employee.find by ID, it helps us to find the specific employee data, and then we display only this data. This is how C works. And what's the role of model.exports? So we export this model, and also we will import this model in app.js. So we just export and import to help us. And for the B, employee.find by ID and update, it help us to find on a specific ID on a specific employee by ID, and then we update this employee records. We provide a new data for this employee. It helps us to update it only one specific record. So for the C, we need to update a record on the employee. So for this one, we need to again use Postman, and we need to create a put request. So our name is Guray. We can provide Guray updated, and then click on the send button, say that employee updated, and also we can call this one and see the name. Our name is changed. This is how we update any employees. And also it calls app.put, and again we get this employee ID from the URL, and create a new data, and the employee.find by ID and updated. We just provide the updated data, and this is how we update. For the D, we need to delete records. So for that, we need to create a delete request, and then click on send. So I say that successful employee has been deleted. If we create a get request, it say that null. So for that, also this is our when we create a delete request, it's called this method. Again, it's similar to previous one. We get this employee ID from the URL, and employee.remove, we provide this ID, and it's deleted. So for the question 2, we need to redesign the question 1 similar to assignment 2 database. So for step 1 we need to create a MongoDB database in Atlas, and you may need to change modern rates. We show the all books info. So for the question 2, so we need to call this app to.js. Let's call this one, and then so first of all we need to load this JSON data to our database and then display it. At the beginning, I create a second database to JS file, and I provide the Atlas URL link, and I also create a second model for the books. So this is our schema. So, and I use the app2.js for this second question, and in this app2.js, so with this api/upload all books URL, I just upload all data to our database and display it. First of all, we clean our database, and so we already call this the JSON data and assign to my book data, and I create a author and a category variable, because some authors has more than one author, and also the category. So we check if it is array or not. If it is array, we assign all of them to our author variable. If it's not, we just assign to only single authors to our variable. We are doing the similar thing for the categories. We check if it is array. If it is not, we assign only one single categories to our variable. And second thing is that we check this data has published date, because some of them doesn't have published date. If it has, so we need to delete some extra parts and assign to our again variable, and we create a new data in our database, and then we get this each element from our JSON. This is the second one that doesn't have published dates, and we get this all book and display it on the web page. So if we call this, so this is upload all books. So it takes time. It's create every data for the each book, and so we can see that our so we can So we can see that the book title, ISBN, page count, published date, URL, short description, long description, status, authors, and the category for the each book. So it's a long list. So we have it was we load all decent or database, and also we can look at our MongoDB Atlas that. So we see that all data in our database. So for the, I already displayed the all books, but also we can call this this method using with Postman. So for that, display all books, we need to call this call handlebar. We need to use books, only books. So we can see that again, each data. So we need to show a specific book. For example, if we copy this ID and display it, so we see that only one books. So for that, it's called this method, and they get this book ID from the URL and book.find by ID. We find this book and display it on the web page, and we can insert a book. So for that, we need to call the post request. We need to create a post request. We need to create a post request that, and so if we title, if we select this only this one and this book, and send it, and I think we can see that at the bottom. So we can see that test book, so we can create it. For that, we call again we create a post request and we call this method. So we create book.create methods, and we get this each element from our user, and finally we find all books and display it on the page, and we can delete also this. So we can delete our test book. We need to call this delete say that book has been deleted. So for that, again, we call this method again, and we get this book ID from URL, and we call book.remove method that we pass to our ID and we delete it, and we display the successful message. And we can also update a book that, so for example, if you want to update this unlock in Android, you need to send a push request and updated book. If you pass updated Android for the unlocking Android and send it, say that book updated, and we only call this specific book that we will see that the updated Android, the title has been updated. For the last part, we need to use a handlebar, show all books and insert a book. So for that, for the show display all books, that we need to call this update get this method with the specific URL, and we create some data variable, and inside the try and catch block we get this all books data from our database, and using with the handlebar we display it on our page, and we call show books HBase inside the show books. So inside the table tag, so we pass this each data using with this structure, and also I use some helpers that put a row number, and also if you look at our helpers, so first of all I create a variable row and variable to display the row number, and I call this helper. It helps us to increase one by one, so we can see that the row number, and the end of this loop we need to make it 0 to use one more time. So we need to call display all books. Equals display all books. So we can see that all records in our web page, and for this row number I use a helper. Now it's increased one by one. So that's our display, and for the inserts, we need to call this create the get request insert book, that it's give us a form web that user provides information of book, and click on the submit button. It creates a post request, and it's called this method, and we get this each element data from user, and then so we create this books, and we get this all books from our database, and then again display it on the web page. We need to call insert book, that so this is our form page. Book title, this assignment, SPMBQ 1 to 3, page count 55, the published date, this. So then click on the submit button. So probably hit this, so we can see that our inserted books. It was our handlebars example. For the challenge part, when I get this data from our database, it was giving me an error, and I searched it. I found this method. We need to put .leon method, and it helps us to display this JSON data in our web page. So it was only the difficult part. So if I evaluate myself, I can give it to myself 10 out of 10. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day.